This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by ERI. ERI has a mission to protect people, the planet, and your privacy, and is the largest fully integrated IT and electronics asset disposition provider and cybersecurity-focused hardware destruction company in the United States, and maybe even the world. For more information on how ERI can help your business properly dispose of outdated electronic hardware devices, please visit eridirect.com. Welcome to another edition of the Impact Podcast. This is a super special edition because we've got with us today Rod Carew, the Hall of Famer, 18-time All-Star and 7-time American League batting champion, including 1967 American League Rookie of the Year. Plus, he's part of the greatest fraternity in the world, as it said in his new book, One Tough Out. It's Rod Carew with us today. Yes, Rod Carew is with us. Thank you for joining us today on the Impact Podcast, Rod.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me.
You know, it's really fitting. I cracked your book open to start reading it a few weeks back, and the first quote in the book is, "A life is not important except the impact it has on other lives." And of course, that's the great Jackie Robinson. And here you are on the Impact Podcast. And I just want to say I'm so grateful after having read this great book that's available on your website, rodcarew.com, and also Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other great bookstores. This book just, you know, I grew up loving you. You were one of my heroes, but you're so much more than baseball. When people read this book and they understand everything that you've done to make an impact on so many people's lives, it's just, I just want to know when the movie's coming. That's what I want to know, Rod.
Well, first of all, we have to find someone to play me, someone that can hit.
I'm sure you have some ideas on someone you want to play you in the movies. But let's start from the beginning. You grew up you were born in Panama, and you had not the easiest of upbringings. You had a very loving and Christian mother, but your dad made it sort of tough on you, and more than sort of tough on you. And it's amazing when you meet people and try to understand the resilience that you had as a child to make it through. When you think back to that, was it your mother's Christian and faith that she instilled on you that helped you make it through that tough period of your life?
Yeah, definitely. She always told me, that I have God in my pocket and he's going to take care of me and follow me throughout, my life. So that was a great part of growing up, knowing that she had the faith in me and allowed me to know God, and what a great man, he is. And you made your way to New York, where you spent some of your youthful years in New York City, right? Growing up. Yeah, after I left Panama, I went to New York, right, and I still had the dream of one day, playing in the big leagues. Because I used to play right outside of on Macombs Field. Wow. And, I'd hear when the Yankees had a game, you hear the roar of the crowd. And I'm up there and I'm standing at home plate and I'm saying to myself, one day you're going to play in this stadium, and I did. So it was a great part of knowing myself, understanding myself, and knowing that I had the talent to maybe one day be a Major League Baseball player. And you make it to baseball, you break in, and you made some good friends early on that became the great male role models in your life that you were missing as a child. Harmon Killebrew, Tony Oliva, and some other great ones really put a big mark on your life and sort of taught you how to be a man once you cracked into baseball, huh? Yeah, I met Tony when the Twins were in town one time, and they invited me out to work out with the team. And so they didn't have a uniform, my size, because I was this tall, lanky kid, and uh, didn't have much meat on my body. So they gave me Tony's number, and we just became great friends. And he taught me everything. You know, he taught me how to handle myself on the field, how to go about playing. And it was a great time for me, you know, because he really took interest in me. And you know what came from that is we became roommates after I made my first year in the big leagues, and we roomed for about 11 or 12 years. And we just had a great time and did everything together.
What an education too! And then you also became good friends with Harmon Killebrew as well.
Well, Harmon and I used to have these ice cream eating contests. You know, Harmon thought that he was a great ice cream guy, and I says, Harmon, I'll beat you in the ground. He says, okay, let's do it. And so the first time we went out, Harmon ate, I think, about about a pint and a half. And I just put him down. I ate about a quart. And he couldn't believe that I could sit in one setting and eat that much ice cream. So he gave me a chance to do it again, and then I beat him again. So he just gave up. He says, "That's it."
You know, one thing I've learned throughout my life, Rod, is these athletes know no bounds of what to compete in. You guys will compete in anything you can. You're so competitive. That competitive streak runs right through you in so many ways, doesn't it?
Yeah. And, you know, I really love the competition, you know, because I always felt that I was going to do good. You know, like my mom said, you know, you've got God in your pocket, and he's going to let you do some things that maybe you don't think you're capable of doing.
Two things I loved what you mentioned in the book, two anecdotes about Harmon Killebrew. One, you said he taught you really the line that it doesn't cost anything to be nice. And what a great lesson that is, and what a simple message that is.
Well, you know, it was something that to me was great because, you know, we're from a different breed of say the guy that goes to work every day, and we were gifted with you know, the talent that God gave each and every one of us.
Right.
And so when he gave me mine, he said, take this gift I'm giving you and work at it and become better. You know, just don't throw it away like a lot of guys would. So, you know, I followed that, and turned out okay.
You know, you were known for your base stealing ability, besides, of course, your hitting ability, which was so over the, you know, beyond amazing. But you stole a lot of bases, including home plate, more than most. And there was a great story, though, how stealing home plate was pretty much a joy in your life, and you had a lot of success doing it, except for the time Harmon Killebrew got the signal that you were going to steal, and he promptly forgot that you were going to be coming down the pike there.
Yeah. You know, Billy Martin was the guy that worked with me every day in spring training on wind-ups, how far I could go, and when to take off. But he says, first thing that we're going to work on is giving everybody a sign. But when you flash the sign to them, you know, they know that you're coming. So on this one occasion with Harmon, you know, I flashed a sign. He answered me, so I figured, okay. But then when I took off and I was getting ready to slide into home plate, he started yelling out, I'm sorry, I missed it. So, you know, the next day, the guys in the PR room came down with this tombstone, and it said, here lies Rod Carew, line to left by Killebrew. You know, so you know, it was we made it. We had a lot of fun with that, you know. And Harmon apologized up and down. He says, "Man, I just forgot in that split second. I don't know what I was thinking." I says, "Well, pal, I'm glad you didn't swing."
That's great. That is just great. You know, I'm a huge fan, of course, of all sports and of baseball, and I enjoyed the movie Moneyball so much, and they gave Billy Beane all the credit for Moneyball. But after reading your book, and again, for our listeners and viewers out there, this book is one of the best books I've read in the last 5 years. One Tough Out by Rod Carew, and it just shows you how much he's done to make an impact on so many people's lives way beyond baseball. The story goes that one of your keys to your hitting success, besides the fact that you knew how to change your stance and move around, and we'll talk about that a little later, is that you actually kept a black notebook and pencil, and you were doing Moneyball on your own way before it became in vogue to keep stats and do statistical analytics on baseball.
Well, you know, it's funny. Tony and I, Oliva and I, went out one day and we bought this little camera,
okay,
you know, and so we took pictures of each other when we were hitting.
Oh.
And we'll go back to the hotel, strip the sheet off the bed, put it up as a screen, and there we were watching each other, you know, swing. And when I did something wrong, Tony would point it out to me, and vice versa. I did the same thing, you know, with him. So we had a lot of fun doing that. And, you know, we learned about ourselves and, you know, we watched ourselves and made small corrections. And so we started the video thing, you know, long before these guys came up with all these different angles you can view while you're, you know, making changes.
And you also kept track in your little black book with the pencil on all the pitchers you faced. So you actually had a history on all those pitchers, which you felt gave you a leg up on how to hit them the next time you faced them better. Is that not correct?
Yeah. You know, understanding pitchers was something that I was very keen on. I always wanted to remember how a guy pitched me, you know, if I'm going to face him the next time. And I remember on one occasion I did that with Catfish Hunter, because Thurman Munson, we flew into New York for a weekend series. And Thurman Munson was the guy that used to just drive me nuts. You know, he would throw dirt on my shoes, untie my shoelaces. And I think Friday night I had 2 or 3 hits. So the next night, I was standing by the batting cage, and he was headed down to the bullpen. And he said, how many are you going to get tonight? I said, well, maybe 2 or 3. And he said, yeah, well, we'll see about that. So I said, Thurman, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to call the pitches. And when I get ready to swing at the pitch and where it's going to go, I'll yell it out. Ron Luciano was behind home plate, and he was just cracking up. And he looked at me and says, can you really do that? I says, yeah. I says, watch. So, you know, I got into the batter's box. The next day we played, I got into that night we played, I got into the batter's box, and Thurman says, so what are you going to do tonight? I says, I am going to call every pitch that he throws me, and then the pitch that I'm going to swing at, it's going to be the pitch that I'm going to yell out, you know, where it was and what type of hit it was. He says, yeah, right. So he continued to untie my shoelaces, and Luciano was just waiting to see what was going to happen.
Right.
So the first pitch, you know, that Catfish got ready to deliver, I yelled out, fastball down and away. And he looked at me, he says, are you peeking? Because of the funny stance that I had, he thought I could see his signs.
Right.
This Thurman, I said, I don't have to look at your signs. I know exactly what I'm going to get. So on the second pitch, Catfish goes into the windup, gets ready to release, and I yell, slider, down and in.
Wow.
And it was a slider down and in. And Luciana's back there cracking up. Says, "How are you doing that? How are you doing that?" I says, "Lucy, this is a big one right here."
Oh.
Okay. So Thurman ran out to Catfish and says, "Yeah, he just called the first two pitches you threw." He says, "Let's drill him." And I guess Catfish says, "Come back to home plate. I'm not going to throw at this guy."
Right.
And when he came back, I said, "Okay, Thurman, this is it." And so, he continued to throw dirt on my shoes. So I
Anything to
stepped up.
distract you. Anything to distract you.
Yeah, that's the kind of guy Thurman was. And I says, "Come on, man, let me just do this and get it over with." He said, "Okay." So I stepped back in the batter's box and I says, "This is it." So, Catfish goes into his windup and he gets ready to release. And I yelled out, "Fastball away, double down the left field line."
Oh my gosh.
And that's what happened.
Right.
It was a fastball away and I hit a double down the left field line. So he comes out to the Catfish and I'm standing on second base and he's yelling at me, "I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you." I says, "Okay." So that was because I had my little black book and because I remembered how Catfish used to pitch to me. So the next day I'm standing at the batter's cage. And so he comes out and he says, "How'd you do that last night?" So I pulled my little black book out of my pocket and I say, "Hey, turn to Catfish and read the sequence of pitches that he normally threw me all the times that I faced him." And those were the pitches. It's always fastball, slider, and then fastball away. And he looked at me and he says, "Well, we're going to change this stuff around." I says, "Hey, you can't change old dogs. They continue to be that way." So,
Wow.
but it was funny. He got a kick out of it. And so did I. And Luciano, when I was at second base, he started waving.
He gave you a little bow. He was bowing towards you.
Yeah. And he told that story quite a bit, and he says, "Man," "that was unbelievable." So Lucy and I became good friends. And he said, "I'm not calling any pitches tonight. I'm going to let you call the pitches." I says, "Nah, that's okay. That's a once in a lifetime thing. And I had fun with it. And I saw you having fun and you bowing down to me and stuff like that." So.
But it's so fascinating. In the book, you talk about not only did the black book serve you well, and you did so much homework through that black book, but go back to your stance again. Your stance was historically unorthodox, and which is interesting because so many little kids in America or other parts of the world grow up saying, "I want to hold the bat and I want to swing like this person or that person." And you said part of the reason for your batting stance and the amount that you changed it was because you actually grew up in Panama and didn't have a lot of exposure to how the people you were listening to were holding the bat and swinging away, and you sort of had to come up with your own position.
Yeah, and you know what? Nolan Ryan was the guy that actually changed my whole batting stance because I used to hold my hands up high.
Right.
And I used to swing at that high fastball that he threw, and I'd always swing and miss. I struck out, I think, about 29 times against Nolan. I'm number 4 on his list.
Really?
And so I said to myself, I got to make adjustments. I can't keep chasing that high fastball because I never seem to make contact with it. So for about 2 weeks, I started to take extra batting practice. I sat on a stool that swiveled, and I didn't have a lot of movement. I didn't come up. I stayed down. It kind of kept me down throughout the whole swing.
Right.
And after I did that, the next time I faced Nolan, I got 2 hits. And then the next time I faced him, I got 2 more hits. I bunted a ball for a base hit. and then I hit a line drive up the middle. And then they came into Minnesota, and he got on the mound, and he yelled out at me, "Stand up, stand up." And I said, "No," I says, "bring it down." Because his fastball, when it was down, was hard but straight. But when he was up in the zone, it looked like a strike, and then it just took off. And by that time, you already swung and missed. So, I experimented with different things because as a hitter, I've always felt that you've got to make adjustments. And if you see something that you can make an adjustment with, then you do it. And that's why I had so many people thought that I had 7 or 8 batting stances, but my front foot was the key. It was where I placed it, and I'd move it around, and had a lot of success doing that. Wow. I didn't guess, like some guys say, "Oh, I'm going to look for fastball or I'm going to look for curveball," and then they don't get the pitches that they're looking for, and they've made themselves easy out. So, I just sat on the fastball because I know that I'm going to get that fastball and I'm going to be able to do with it. You can't look for a breaking ball or a changeup and then, make adjustment to the fastball. Right. But if I'm looking, fastball, right, I can always make adjustments with my swing.
And you were able then to also read what was going on in the field, if they shifted or not, and make adjustments in your swing and in your stance to make up for what how you saw them trying to shift.
Yeah, I used to, when I was at home plate, I always looked up the middle. Okay. And sometimes, believe it or not, I would see a player take 1 or 2 steps, as the pitch is coming up to home plate. And so they were making adjustments in where they thought I would hit that pitch because they were getting signs from the catcher and also from the pitcher what pitch they're going to throw, at that time. So it was amazing that I could just focus up the middle and see these guys taking a step or 2, and then I'll hit the ball where they were actually playing, but just out of their reach. Right. So, those are the adjustments and things that you have to think about being a hitter. I just hated walking back to the bench after I struck out. And that's the longest walk that you can take on the baseball field. So I tried not to walk back to that dugout too many times.
Before we go on to some very serious chapters in this book, and this book is just amazing. Again, Rod Carew, One Tough Out. I recommend, if you love sports, or by the way, if you love people, this is the book to read. One Tough Out, one of my favorite books of the last 5 years. And I'm going to tell you, you won't be disappointed. Rod's impact it goes way beyond baseball. And we're going to talk about that in a second. Rod, I heard when I was doing my homework, not in the book, of course, but when I was doing my homework on you, that you actually didn't make your high school basketball team. How is that possible for such a great athlete? How is that even possible?
Well, I come from Panama, and my primary language is Spanish. So my godmother told me that you've got to belong to all these different English clubs so that, when you speak English, you allow people to understand you and understand what you're saying. And so she said, you got to join this club at school, this club after school. She had like 3 or 4 of them. And I went to the classes, and believe it or not, there were a lot of foreign kids that went to those classes. And so I wasn't allowed to play baseball for the first 2 years that I came from Panama. So when she saw that I was improving in my language skills, then she allowed me to go out my senior year. And so I went out, and the first workout, I thought I did pretty good. but the coach told me I wasn't good enough to play on the team. So I says, okay. So this buddy of mine that was on the team also played sandlot baseball on the weekends, like in Crotona Park or, Central Park, all over the city.
Right.
So he took me out with him and introduced me to the manager. And he took a look at me and he says, okay, we'll give you a shot. And so I started playing, with the team. And the guy's name was Sam Commando, who, I really got along with real well and who taught me a lot about, playing the game. And then the buddy of mine, his dad was more of a bird dog scout for the Twins because the guy that really signed me worked as a transit authority guy in the subways.
Right.
So then he started coming out and watching me, and both of those guys were such a big part of me learning and growing up and getting the opportunity to sign with the Twins.
What I mean, when you think back on your amazing career, if we were just to change for a second and say, okay, Rod, you could have been, if you had a choice outside of baseball with your same talent ability to play either in the NBA or NFL, what do you enjoy more? Do you enjoy basketball more? Or do you enjoy the football more? Or do you enjoy them both the same?
Well, it's funny because I used to be a pretty good soccer player when I was growing up in Panama.
Oh, okay.
And then my uncle was in charge of the physical education part of the school. Oh. So once he saw me play baseball, he says, okay, no more soccer. So that's how it turned out.
Got it.
Yeah.
But I want to cover now some of the very important and serious topics in the book beyond baseball, of course. You had this Hall of Fame career, which, as you were told and as you repeat in the book, you were welcomed to the greatest fraternity in the world by over 90% of the sports writers that vote, and what an honor and all that great stuff. But when your daughter Michelle was diagnosed with lymphoma and leukemia, and you got involved, you were already very close with her. She was already your youngest, and you took on a very important role with her diagnosis of leukemia. And you want to share what happened, because it's beautifully described in the book, but I would love you in your own words to describe the experience on how you changed your approach to being sort of a private and insular person to being a much more accessible public figure in the wake of her tragic illness and then passing.
Well, it was all about what she told me. When we checked her into the hospital, a children's hospital,
yeah,
she saw all these kids running up and down the hallway with their poles, and they're kicking soccer balls and have hockey sticks and playing the different sports, and having a good time. So she looked at me and she says, Dad, she says, I know that you don't get along with the press real well, but I want you to open up and not only help me, but help the other kids that were running around. And so I promised her that I would. And I remember going down the elevator one day with this couple and their 6-year-old daughter. So I said hello, and she says hello. And then she looked at me and she says in Spanish, Dios me vas a matar, which means God is going to kill me, because she had some disease. And I says, no, I said, God is going to take care of you. He's going to make you better. And when I said that, the elevator hit the floor, and she gave me this big smile. And I went into the gift shop to get something for my daughter. And that just changed my whole outlook, that I have to do something else besides just play, baseball. I have to be more in tone with what's going on with other people's lives. And that was a big difference right there.
Well, let's break it down, and because I really want our viewers and listeners to hear the tremendous impact that you made with Michelle, both during her life, after she was diagnosed, and then after her passing. She was the one who encouraged you to speak up and use your platform, which you did. But the real crisis came down to, with her leukemia diagnosis, she needed a bone marrow match. And because of her unique ethnic genetic makeup, part Panamanian, part Russian Jewish, back then, when you looked at the donor match list, which then was only 90,000 people or so was on that list, you couldn't find any matches for her bone marrow. Is that the crux of the issue?
Right. We couldn't, and her sisters, or my ex-wife, didn't match. So then we set out to try and get more people involved in the donor match, and it went from the figures that you just said to about 2.5 million people. And people were calling and coming in, and they wanted to help Michelle. And you know what's amazing? It's I know that it wasn't because I was Rod Carew. It's because I was just a dad trying to help his daughter out, and in turn help a lot more kids that were waiting that couldn't find matches and were waiting for some way to save their lives.
Well, beyond that, yes, you did, but she did a bunch of interviews with some of your local sports writers, friends from the LA Times. You did a bunch, plus the media came out. So you took it from 90,000 upon her diagnosis to then 2.5 million when she passed. And you had a beautiful line in the book that when she went to sleep, she woke up the world. And when you wrote this book, the numbers that I tracked back is now there's over 20 million people on the national donor list because of you and your platform, and how you took her words of doing more with that platform that you earned and made an impact on so many people's lives. And that impact will continue to reverberate for decades and lifetimes ahead of us, because now there's over 20 million people compared to the 90,000 when she was first diagnosed. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is, and we thanked everyone because, as I said before, it's not because I was Rod Carew, the baseball player. It's because it's Rod Carew, the guy that's, his daughter is sick, and he's trying to help her, but also help so many other kids that were suffering with leukemia and these different blood diseases. So, I enjoyed it. And I told her, I says, honey, I will always work with the kids until the day that I am not able to, or the day that I'm not here on this earth. And so I started doing a lot of things. I have a golf tournament that it's been going on for about 25 years. And it's because of Michelle. And we've had a lot of kids that we've saved, a lot of kids that we've lost, but we've seen kids who had dreams of going to college and stuff like that, being able to, get better and given a chance to go to college and possibly realize their dreams. Because, we're all dreamers. We dream of what we want to do, or and how we can do it. And so I'm happy that she talked me into doing this. And so many families have, thanked me over the years, and I appreciate that.
And by the way, these tens of thousands of families that haven't had the opportunity to thank you, but so many have been affected positively because of you and Michelle and what you've done. 20 million people on that list now gives you so much hope if a child is now diagnosed with that horrific disease. I mean, what a great thing you both did. What a great thing. Amazing.
And we're continuing to save lives.
Right.
Which is the key, because it's like growing up in Panama. My dream was to be a Major League Baseball player. And that's how I carried myself, even though I was an abused child by my dad. And I said to myself that maybe baseball would get me someplace and allow me to help other people. And like my mom used to tell me, God's in your pocket. He's gonna follow you. He's gonna take care of you. And he sure has.
After Michelle's passing, you things changed a little bit in your life, and you remarried, and you took up golf, which wasn't really part of your life while you were playing, in the midst of your career. And if I read right, I mean, which is just an incredible, you were a latecomer to golf, but you have over at least what in the book it talked about, you have 6 aces, or do you have more than that now?
No, I have 7.
7 aces.
The first time I played, my manager, Gene Mock, gave me a brand new set of Ping clubs.
Right.
And the first day I went out was with Bly Levin and some of the other guys. And we were playing at this course that, you have to hit the ball straight. If not, you're going to end up in water or you're going to end up in the trees. And so my first swing of the club, I sliced the ball, and there's a running water along the freeway that I ended up in. And then they said, come on, hit another one. So I hit another one and I sliced it the same spot. So then I put my club back in my bag. I got on the cart. I went over to that area where the ball went, and there's flowing water along the freeway. And I took my bag out of the club, out of the cart, threw it in the water. I said, I have enough trouble playing with this little white ball at night that this little white ball is not going to drive me crazy. And then I got involved again, playing with some buddies, and the only guys I ever played with were friends that I met, and that's the only time I would play. I never went off with other people and played. But I started to enjoy it because it was so much about concentration and stuff like that, and I had fun. I haven't played the last 6 years after I had my heart transplant, but I'm looking forward to, playing again.
So do you still have your tournament?
Yes, the tournament. We just finished our 25th year this past year.
Okay.
And I've only missed one.
Wow.
When I was in the hospital. And it's funny because I kept telling the doctors, can you let me out for the day? I've got this tournament that I have to be at, and they kept saying no, because we're afraid you might not come back, So somebody came in about 3 weeks later to see me, and they were talking about the tournament, and the doctor was in there, and he says, you really had a tournament? And I says, yeah. I says, this guy's played in a tournament for about 20 years. And he just started laughing, But yeah, we just finished the 25th year, and we've had the same people that's been coming back and playing. We don't have athletes that come and make an appearance or anything. And every year, we bring in about 285 people to play in the tournament. So it's still going strong.
Before we move on to your work with the American Heart Association and the incredible story with regards to your heart attack, whoop, 1 second.
Okay.
We
Low
just
battery on my part.
we lost the picture for a second. I think we need to get the picture back. Oh, we got it. Okay, got it. It's perfect. Before we get talking about your heart attack and the incredible story of recovery, Rod, how, if people want to help the cause that you've been speaking about for now many, many years, over 2 decades, with regards to Michelle and be a match and being a donor, how can they help become part of that group and help support all the great work you've done to increase the number of people on the national donor list?
Well, they can go on the internet and look for PCRF, which is the Children's Cancer Group, and get all the information they need and help us. Got it.
Perfect. So it's 2015. You are in reasonably great shape because you typically always stayed in good shape in your whole career and post-career in baseball. And in fact, the night before, you had a wonderful night. I believe you got up on stage with some of your friends when they were singing and having fun covering some great songs. And you got up and I think you were singing Oye Como Va or something the night before.
Yeah.
The next day, you went out to the golf course and you take it from there.
Well, we were doing a leukemia lymphoma march around Angel Stadium. That's something that I got involved with. One of the vice presidents. I was his sports star to help. And this one night, this friend of mine who has a band, they're all ex-officers. So he was playing in the band, and then he asked me to come up on stage and join him, and I did. And he gave me the maracas, and he says, we're going to sing this one song that I knew a few of the words. So I got up there and, I was really enjoying myself, and I was dancing around, and then I got tired, and I says, hey, you guys continue playing. So I went down and, talked to people and welcomed them to the event that we were doing. And the next morning, after I went home, the next morning I got up about 5 o'clock and decided I wanted to play golf. I was going out by myself. And so on the first hole, the first ball that I hit was down the middle. And I was surprised because every time the first ball usually go to the left or to the right. So I it was my military golf days when that happened. So I started to put my club back in my bag, and then I had a little bit of a burn going down the middle of my chest, and then my hands were really balmy, and so I said, So this buddy of mine who had told me about 3 weeks prior that he was in Vegas and he was playing craps and he was winning. And then all of a sudden he felt this, this burn in his chest. And he says, if you feel anything in your chest, or, go to the doctor. What he did was he left the crap table, went up to the hotel doctor, and found out that he had a 90 plus
blockage.
Blockage. Wow. And so they told him, when he got back home, he's got to go make sure he sees his cardiologist. And so I remembered that, and I backed my car back up to hole number 1, which was really close to the clubhouse. And I walked in and I asked the lady if she could please call paramedics. because I think, there's something going on with my chest. And she did. And they came and they lost me. The first time they lost me. So then they brought me back.
You flatlined. You literally
flatlined, right.
Oh, wow.
And so I flatlined again when I was just laying there while they were working on me. And the amazing thing is when Michelle was in the hospital, I used to lay in bed with her and we'd do cross puzzles. And so she'd say to me, Dad, my guardian angel is right over in the corner. You can see it. You can't see him, but I can. And he's sitting, he's got this light that goes around him. And he's got his hands like he's praying. So I said to myself, okay, I know she's been here for a while and she's been on these different drugs and stuff. And I thought that's what she was imagining. But when the paramedics were with me at the golf course, one of them had a light that was going around his body and his head and shoulders and came back down by his arms. So then I said, that's my guardian angel. And that's the same thing that Michelle saw. And, they loaded me up.
You had a similar experience.
Yes.
So
they loaded me up into the ambulance. And as I'm going to the hospital, they lost me again. And they brought me back. And when we got to the hospital, on the way to the operating room, they lost me again. And then they brought me back, and so I said, my mother said, you have God in your pocket. So I guess he's in there and he's, he keeps tapping you and he's not ready for you yet. And I had massive heart attack. Yeah, I had the massive heart attack.
But it's called the Widowmaker, right? You had the
Widowmaker, yeah. And usually you don't come back from those. Oh. But God was in my pocket.
So first, tell what happened. They hooked you up to this massive contraption. How did that go?
Well, I was still struggling.
Yeah.
And so they kept me in the hospital for about a week.
Right.
And then they discharged me. And they told my wife to make an appointment to see a cardiologist because we were planning on going to Italy.
Right.
And they told us that, yeah, you'll be able to just take it easy and you'll be able to make your trip. So when we went to the cardiologist on Monday, he said, you don't look too good. He said, you're going to go back over to the emergency. And I went back over. So they transferred me to San Diego. And that's where I spent, I don't know, all the time before I had my my heart transplant and kidney transplant at the same time.
But before you got your heart and kidney transplant, they put in a machine into an LCD or
LVAD. LVAD.
LVAD.
Yeah. And that kept me alive for about 14 months. And the battery started to wear. And I needed to get a heart transplant within the next 5 or 6 days. So this young man that I met when he was about 10, going to preschool where my son went, he was out running around and I went there to watch a basketball game. So he ran up to me and says, you're Rod Carew, huh? I says, yeah. He says, when I grow up, I want to be an athlete. I says, good. I said, well, make sure that you study and you have good grades in school. He says, oh, I have good grades, and but I'm going to be an athlete when I grow up. I hadn't seen this kid, I think, for maybe 20 years. But he grew up, went to Stanford. After he graduated, he was with, I think, the Jets.
Right.
And then they let him go, and he was with the Ravens.
Right.
And he was also waiting to possibly sign a contract with the Patriots.
Right.
So while working out, he heard something pop in his neck, and his dad told him to go to the emergency room right away. It comes to find out he had aneurysm. And so they lost him. And at the funeral, I guess, people were talking about, well, Rod Carew's having some heart problems and he needs a new heart. And his mom heard about it, contacted my wife. And so she said she wanted to make sure that her son's heart went to a good person. So they thought of me, and I received his heart and a kidney.
Now, a couple things. A, it was really through the National Donor Society, where he had filled out on his driver's license that he would donate his organs, like his mom and dad had checked on their driver's license, and he asked them for guidance. They said, yeah, we did it. If you want to do it, it's a nice thing. And so about 7 months prior, he had checked that box, right, on his DMV.
Right, yeah.
And
but he was able to get the advice from his parents that, you do it
right
yourself.
And they really didn't have any part of the decision as to where the organs went. It was really the match program. So it was just one of those, as you said in the book, there's lots of God's winks in your book about how your life, the tapestry of your life evolved. And that's just one of them, because really the parents had no say-so where those organs were going. This was after the fact that they started learning and putting the pieces together with your wife on how both your lives reconnected, right?
Right. Yes, sure enough. And,
wow.
I've thanked him ever since, I was given a second chance at life. And I carry him around with me every single day. I was able to also get a kidney from him. And it's amazing how things work out. You hate for someone to die so you can live, but I guess that's part of the way God had it planned. And so I thank him every day.
I want to talk about that in a second. And as you said in the book, that call as your big mechanical device that was keeping you going for 14 months, as that started to not really have its effect anymore, you got this call and you said that call maybe was better than the call from Cooperstown.
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah.
Right.
Because, you've worked so hard to stay alive and make a life and trying to continue doing good things. And here's a great thing that's happening to you now. And God was in my pocket again, and he's been there and he stayed there.
And as you said, he spared you for a reason. And I want to talk a little bit about that reason now. Well, first of all, before we talk about Conrad Rulin, talk a little bit about another wink. Another God's winks. Conrad Rulin, you were one of his heroes that he actually got to meet and touch and inspired you. And when he passed away, he actually was 29 years old, which was your number throughout your career. Another wink.
Another wink.
Another wink.
And it's funny because everyone thinks that I'm the same age as I should be, but I've taken some years off knowing that when I got the heart, I was 29, he was 29. So I figured, what the heck?
I mean,
but it's amazing. It's just amazing, the occurrences that we faced, and after I had the transplant, the first thing I said to my wife is, guess what, honey? God has given me a second life so we can continue to help other people. And sure enough, we've continued doing that. Whenever we get a call to go someplace because of something having to do with heart problems, we just drop everything and go. Because, heart disease is one of the main things that take lives in this country. And so we're happy that we can do our part in helping.
As your pastor, Rick Warren, says, if you're alive, there's a purpose for your life. And obviously your purpose, you're living your purpose. And again, for our viewers and listeners, it's Rod Carew's book, One Tough Out, Fighting Off Life's Curveballs. You can buy it on rodcarew.com, and you can also find it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and many other great bookstores. So now you have Conrad's heart and kidney, and Mary Ruland and her husband, Carl, who happens to be a doctor, wanted to meet you and your wife and your family. How was that? I watched the video. I watched that video way before I ever knew I was ever going to have this chance to interview you. And I'll tell you, I don't think I even took 3 breaths during that whole video of Heart of the 29. Talk a little bit about them wanting to meet you about 11 weeks after that transplant and what happened that day and how it all evolved.
Well, my wife and his mom set up an appointment for us to go over to his home. And I think the thing that really came to me was when she wanted to hear her son's heartbeat. And I told her, I said, Mary, anytime you want to do that, I'll be right there. I'll be on call. So she put her head on my chest and was listening to his heartbeat. She says, yeah, that's it. That's it. And then we tried to make a tape to put in a doll so that we could give it to her as a present. So whenever she got the urge, we can, we'll do that.
Wow. But way beyond that, you guys have become Carl and Mary, and you and your wonderful wife, Rhonda, you've become good friends. And there's even a family merger of the names that came together. Talk about that.
We put them together, and we feel like they're part of our family.
And you're part of theirs.
Yeah. And, we just felt that it was something we had to do.
I mean, their name was Conrad Ruland, and I think you came up with, or they came up with, or you both came up with Carewland.
Right.
That's a great name.
We made a big sign that we keep in our home.
That's wonderful.
Just a part of the history of what we went through with the family.
And so, Rod, I know you've become great friends with the Rulands, and that your grandchildren are now friends. Avalon and Nora are friends. So it's a wonderful way to continue the life and the legacy of both you and Conrad together, with now the two families coming together.
Yes, it is, and I guess it was meant to be.
Right.
And, we're just happy that we can maintain our friendship and relationship. And life goes on.
Well, Rod, I just want to thank you for spending time with us today. As you said, your purpose, you're a living proof of of your life's purpose, which is improving the lives of others. And you've lived up to Jackie Robinson's quote of making an impact. What a life well lived. And God bless you and your whole family. And I just hope you have, as you said, you have to have a lot more years in you now. You have a 29-year-old heart in you, Rod. I mean, this is,
I hope.
This is good news for all the people that love you like me. And again, please, Rod Carew, One Tough Out, fighting off life's curveballs. Support both the Donor Match National Donor Society in terms of matching up and becoming a donor for bone marrow transplants and people who need help, like his daughter Michelle, and also the American Heart Association. Get your heart checked and donate to Heart of the 29 and all the other great organizations that Rod's involved with. Rod Carew, you're an amazing man. The people that have followed you throughout your career, like me, not only love you for what you did in baseball and how you carried yourself, but the massive impact, how you've improved people's lives after your career is beyond amazing. And I just wish you so many more decades of a happy and healthy life with your family. God bless you and all that you've done for all of us. Thank you again, Rod Carew, for your time today.
Thank you for having me on and helping me to spread the word. Get your hearts checked. You know, it's the #1 killer in this country. So I just hope that people will listen, you know, because it's so important.
This edition of the Impact Podcast is brought to you by Engage. Engage is a digital booking platform revolutionizing the talent booking industry. With thousands of athletes, celebrities, entrepreneurs, and business leaders, Engage is the go-to spot for booking talent for speeches, custom experiences, live streams, and much more. For more information on Engage or to book talent today, visit letsengage.com.